Hey there. Good to see you again. Well, I can't see you. You can see me. It's all good. Welcome to the Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central. As always, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I am Bernie Mickelson. I've been writing and talking about St. Louis area sports in many forms of media since 1985. I do 5 videos and write 5 columns each week here on STL Sports Central. And every Friday, I join Randy Carricker on his show at our site here every Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. You can catch me frequently on KMOX. I host a weekly Cardinals podcast with my friend Will Leach. It's called Seeing Red. And I am a guest of Katie Wu on the Cardinal Territory video and podcast. Thank you for supporting all of my endeavors. Today's topic, and I will put it in question form. Does Sonny Gray want out? Another question. Has Sonny Gray pitched his final game as a Cardinal? If so, it would have been last night in San Francisco. He pitched very well. The Cardinals lost, blew a late lead, and, one of those nights, but whatever. They were officially eliminated from the third wild card spot. They were already eliminated, just not officially. So anyway, I'm more interested in turning towards the future, but also talking about some of the stuff going on. But we're going to talk about Sonny Gray today. Has he pitched his final game as a Cardinal? Well, it sure seems like it, or at the very least, it seems to be trending this way. And this isn't me just running my mouth. This is based on Gray's own words, him running his mouth. He made some comments after Wednesday night's start at San Francisco that revealed his current mindset about waiving his no-trade protection, full no-trade protection this coming off season, and signing off on a deal, agreeing to a trade if the destination is right for him. And we don't know what that means other than, maybe he would like to be closer to his family home in Nashville, maybe the Atlanta Braves. But look, reportedly the San Francisco Giants want him. He had some really enjoyable years for the Oakland A's and enjoyed his time in the Bay Area. So who knows? There's going to be teams that want him, and we'll get into that later. But as Gray told reporters after Wednesday night's game, and I quote, "I came here to win. I signed here 2 years ago with the expectation of winning and trying to win, and that hasn't played out that way. I want to win. I want to win, and I expect to win." I mean, he said a lot of other things, but that right there gets straight to the heart of the matter. I came here to win. I signed here with the expectation of winning, trying to win. It hasn't played out that way. I want to win. I want to win. I expect to win. Yeah, not real subtle, right? Not real subtle. Now, you never know. Maybe the Cardinals don't find a deal to their liking, or maybe they could always just go in a straight salary dump as well, because they are entering a pretty big rebuild, right? Now, this doesn't reach the level of Sonny Gray saying something like, look, it's nothing personal, but I want out. Let's be adult about this. The directions of the direction of this team, the direction meaning a substantial rebuild, is the opposite of what Sonny Gray sought. And when he agreed to a 3-year, $75 million free agent contract with the Cardinals before the 2024 season. The Cardinals' future plans, it's nothing against Gray, but their future plans don't match the goals of a soon-to-be 36-year-old starting pitcher who knows his career clock is winding down, and Gray knows that his time is running out in his desire to pitch for a team that will aggressively pursue postseason success. The Cardinals are not that team. We're talking about a team that's really going to go for a pennant, do what it takes, take that extra step, make that extra trade, get that missing piece to give themselves a chance to win a pennant, a World Series, or both. High stakes baseball, October baseball. That's what all these guys want, right? And Gray wants it, and he will not get that. No way he will get that if he stays with the Cardinals. Chaim Bloom's rebuilding project isn't a quick fixer-upper. As I keep telling everyone, based on good inside information I have, the rebuild will be a slow process because Bloom wants to do it right, and Bloom wants to set the Cardinals up in a way that they'll be positioned for sustained success after they complete the project. And the another bottom line here is that there's more work to be done than I think Chaim Bloom envisioned. And I think, I think he's perfect for the job because he's not impatient and he's not going to succumb to fan pressure or media pressure to, well, I better make a move just to make people happy or whatever, or try to show them we're winning, trying to win. That's one of the reasons why the hell they got in this place that they're in right now under John Mozeliak. Feeling, well, we got to do something just to show the fans, do something without going all in. Okay, that's ancient history. Gray is in the same late career spot as his teammate Nolan Arenado. And as we know full well, Arenado also has a no trade clause that he implemented to block a deal that would have sent him to the Astros last winter. Based on his comments during the Cardinals' final homestand of 2025, Arenado seems ready for a change. He didn't say that he'll agree to just any old trade. Whatever they want to do. He didn't say that. But look, he's also realistic after going through what he went through last offseason and after turning down a trade to a team that will be going to the playoffs. I think the Astros will be going to the playoffs anyway. They were certainly a contender. The truth is, and he knows it, and that's why there was kind of a change in his tone. If Arenado wants to be with a team that's pushing to get to the postseason, it's got an excellent chance to get to the postseason, it's going to push into October, go far, and all that, he's going to have to expand his list of agreeable trade destinations. It's as simple as that. And the same absolutely applies to Gray. If winning winning as in now, well, next year, if winning in the next year or two is crucial to him, really, really meaningful to him, really a priority, well, Sonny Gray can do what he wants with his veto, right? But I don't know why he would want to stay here if he can't attain the goals that are right in front of him that he really, really wants. And I don't know why he would be too fussy about where the Cardinals would trade him if they have the chance. I think both of these guys are going to have to just expand their horizons. No, I'm not saying that, Sonny Gray is going to take a call from Chaim Bloom and he'll say, so you got to deal with the Rockies, huh? Like, so to trade me to the Rockies. Well, that sounds great. Hey, Chaim, that sounds great. Let's do it. No, I don't think that's going to happen. But you know what I'm saying, man? You can't, I think everybody wants to be traded to the Dodgers, right? You gotta expand that, right? These lists with Arenado and Sonny, they got to be a little longer. I do think maybe Arenado would listen to more things. Maybe a team that is not really in contention, but it's a place he would be happy to live at. Say, like, for example, and I'm not saying this is a probability, but maybe the Angels would appear to him if he's going to settle for a team that's not like ready to win right now because he grew up in Orange County. I don't know. Only he knows. All I'm saying is these no trade lists, there's going to be a lot of teams that these two guys are going to have to say, okay, I changed my mind on that. That's all I'm saying. If they really want to go to a winner or just a fresh start, whatever. The irony, of course, is both Gray and Arenado became Cardinals because they wanted to be part of one of the most successful Major League Baseball franchises over the last 30 years with Bill DeWitt Jr. as the owner. Even with their current down cycle and even with the mistakes that have been made, which I've talked about, 5 million times, the Cardinals' 75 postseason wins are the most by a National League team during the Bill DeWitt era. The Dodgers will pass that soon, but as of right now, the Cardinals, Bill DeWitt's first season was 1996. The Cardinals, since that time, 75 postseason wins, more than any other team in the National League. And only two teams, the Yankees and the Astros, have competed in more postseason games than the Cardinals since DeWitt and his partners purchased the team before the 1996 season. It's a very, very good track record, despite the recent disappointments and frustrations. So when Arenado angled for a trade, he was tired of Colorado, couldn't get along with the general manager at the time, and thought some promises were broken and all that stuff. He really angled to be a Cardinal. He really wanted to be a Cardinal. They were a strong contender. You get in the postseason so many times. And after leaving the Rockies, who were not going to go to the postseason anytime soon, Arenado had a couple of shots at the postseason baseball in St. Louis, but the Cardinals flopped in 2021 and 2022 in the postseasons, and then collapsed to a 91-loss year in 2023. And by the way, I'm not saying this to be mean, and I'm about to bring Paul Goldschmidt in the conversation, but, Goldie and Arenado did have their chance in 21 and 22 to make a difference in the postseason. And to be perfectly blunt, but also factually correct, they failed miserably. Although Goldie back in 2019, before Arenado was a Cardinal, Goldie was great in the most recent postseason round victory the Cardinals have had when they beat Atlanta in the National League Division Series in 2019. But as teammates, Arenado and Goldschmidt had chances. They had a couple cracks at this as teammates, and they were really one of the big reasons why the Cardinals could not advance. And again, I'm just being truthful here. So Goldie also nudged his way to he also nudged the Diamondbacks to trade him to St. Louis before the 2019 season. And Goldie reaffirmed his appreciation for becoming a Cardinal and being part of a winning history that he thought was going to continue by signing a 5-year contract extension that expired after the 2024 season. Cardinals said, "We thank you, but we're going to move in another direction." And Goldie signed with the Yankees. He'll be playing some postseason ball this year, and I hope he does well. Class act, great guy. The team that Goldie and Arenado and Sonny Gray thought they were going to, a perennial contender, a team that's in the playoffs, if not all the time, then most of the time. They would have a chance to realize the dream of, being on a team that was a force, a factor in the postseason. Instead, what they thought that they were going to get turned into something else, a deteriorating contender, made that way because of an outdated front office that failed to adapt and modernize. And then they went from being a fading contender to deteriorating contender to a contender that just, we got to rebuild now. They should have done it after the 2023 season. See, they'd be 2 years into it, and fans by then would sort of see what's developing, and the Cardinals probably would be in better shape in terms of, marketing season ticket sales or anything like that. Just a theory. Who knows, right? The team that Goldschmidt and Arenado and Sonny Gray thought they were going to, well, that no longer exists, right? So two of them have moved to new homes. I should say Goldie's moved to 2 homes. Goldie has moved to a new home, and Arenado and Gray want to. Compared to Gray, Goldschmidt and Arenado had every reason to feel confident about becoming part of the Cardinals because of the Cardinals' future, the way they saw it. After all, Goldie did compete in the postseason in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, for his first 4 years as a Cardinal in the playoffs each time. And he had Arenado as a teammate for 2 of those 4 postseasons. But after 2023, Sonny Gray put aside the fact that the Cardinals were coming off their worst full season record since 1990, when he signed with the Cardinals before the 2024 season. And I know what he's thinking. He talked to Mo, and he saw, Mo said, our plan is we're going to sign you and 2 other starters. I think we're going to get, Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. So we're going to rebuild our rotation on the fly. And they did. And listen, those three guys did fine in 2024. Lance Lynn got hurt. That's not his fault, And Kyle Gibson, I thought, pitched pretty well because we kind of knew exactly what kind of pitcher he was. And there was there was some good stuff there, but he was also hittable because he didn't strike out a lot of guys. So Gray kind of went for the pitch that Mo made rather than maybe taking a step back and looking at it realistically. But he wanted to be in a mid-sized market, and he wanted to be close to his family home in Nashville. And his wife and kids were excited about him being a Cardinal. And at least there was some reason for optimism because he was part of that free agent signing class with the three starting pitchers that I just mentioned. It wasn't enough to get the Cardinals back to the postseason, what Mo did before the 2024 season. It wasn't enough. They were in contention all the way through the trade deadline. Then they fell apart in August. But it wasn't enough to get the Cardinals back into the playoffs. And maybe in the long run, that's probably best because they kept putting off a more larger scale rebuild type situation by taking half measure steps and just trying to patch it up every offseason. It just hasn't been working. So they have to go to the next step because they've missed the playoffs for the last 3 years, and they have failed to make the postseason 6 times, no postseasons, 6 times in the last 10 seasons going back to the start of 2016. So if Gray is having a change of heart, it's understandable. If Arenado is willing to be a lot more flexible about where he wants to play or where he's be willing to play, well, that's going to make it a lot easier for Chaim Bloom to trade him. It's going to be difficult as it is. But there'll be some teams that want him because of his defense and because he doesn't strike out much and he puts a ball in play. And he is a relentless, tough-minded competitor. There's a team. You got a future Hall of Fame third baseman. You got one of the great third basemen defensively that ever lived. Yeah, there's a market for him. I just don't know how big, and I don't know how much money the Cardinals can have to eat. Of the two guys, Gray, Arenado, I think Gray clearly has more market appeal, and Bloom would have, I think, a terrific opportunity to make a big splash in the organization's supply of their prospect talent pool by making that splash by trading Gray. And for Bloom, the Cardinals, it's all about collecting future assets. DeWitt hired Bloom and gave him a generous 5-year contract to do just that. And unlike a large percentage of Cardinals fans, at least the ones I hear from, Gray totally gets what this direction is now. I'm not being critical of fans, but I continue to just get notes from people that it's just like, well, if they sign this guy and they sign that guy and they sign this guy, and they're not, unless it's a stopgap thing to fill a void or let's say a starting pitcher that's on the market who hasn't been doing too well, but Bloom and his incredibly intelligent analytics department picked up on something. They may take a flyer on a guy and it may pay off. But this idea like, well, all they need is this and all they need is that. Ain't that the trap that got the Cardinals into this mess to begin with? Right? I really want to continue perpetuating that cycle of insanity? I don't. Anyway, Gray gets it, which is why he said what he said, because he's been talking with Chaim Bloom. They've had discussions, he acknowledged. And Bloom, true to his nature, and this is what Cardinals fans can expect, with Sonny Gray, he was straight up and upfront and divulging what the Cardinals' plans were, and that is the R word. Gray said, quote, after last night, quote, I know the deal. I know the direction. And that's why all of a sudden he's talking about, well, maybe, I got to do what's best for me, right? Up until recently, he wouldn't even acknowledge that a trade would even crossed his mind. But after sitting down with Chaim Bloom, he sees the light. And the light is actually shining from another city that maybe he wants to be traded to. Anyway, this stuff is so interesting because, I said it before, I'll say it again. Cardinals fans and media, a lot of media in our town, they don't know this rebuild thing's got everyone in a tizzy because Cardinals haven't had to rebuild under Bill DeWitt. This is the first time. That tells me he's been a pretty good owner, but what do I know, right? I mean, you got the most postseason wins in the National League since he became the owner. Well, that's garbage. He's terrible. Yeah, okay. Anyway, when I return for my second segment of today's Bernie Show, I'll talk about Sonny Gray's trade market appeal and how the Cardinals can handle the 2026 rotation if he's dealt to a contender. But first, some awesome news from DraftKings Sportsbook. Missouri, get ready. Your wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State. So let's get ready for DraftKings to show us the money. I like being able to jump in on college football games or NFL games and to do it comfortably in the privacy of my own home without having to go across the river to do it legally in the state of Illinois or whatever, and I didn't want to make a big speech about that, but I've been sitting here for years saying, why should someone prohibit me for spending my money the way I want to spend it? And I'm not, so I feel like freedom is here, at least in that regard, for sure. And DraftKings Sportsbook is America's top-rated sports app, and it's really, really outstanding. You can sign up today. So do it because you can get acquainted with everything and how it works and fool around with it to learn more about it. And you'll be ready by the time December 1st rolls around. And that's when they're launching. So new Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December the 1st. So download it now and place a $5 bet when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live. You have to wait till December 1st, and then you're ready to go. DraftKings Sportsbook brings you everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning fast payouts, endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings officially goes live in Missouri, you're going to be betting with the Sportsbook app that is trusted by millions, the best there is. Safe and secure with fast money withdrawals and a lot of other things you'll like. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December the 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Do it. Do it today and be ready for December 1st. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 and over, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after being issued. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, thanks for sticking with me. Welcome back to our show today, segment number 2. By the way, just a quick favor to ask. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can do with one click, and kindly hit that like button as well. Thank you very much. Trading Sonny Gray would be the right thing to do and the obvious thing to do, and I'd be stunned if Heimblum would pass on the opportunity to get it done. And I would be really surprised if Sonny Gray refused to give his approval to okay a trade, unless it's a really, really bad place. But if it's a team that's got a chance to win, I don't think he can be too picky because he ain't going to have a chance to win here in 2026. Probably not 2027, if there is a 2027. Gray was inconsistent in 2025, but there are still a lot of positives in his pitching profile. This season's Gray 4.28 ERA was on the high side because last year he pitched to a 3.84 ERA in his first St. Louis season. But his fielding independent ERA, which I think tends to be more indicative of the true quality of someone's pitching. His fielding independent ERA this season was 3.39, and that was just a relatively small increase from last year's 3.12. And while it's also true that Sonny Gray's strikeout rate dropped by 3.5% from 2024, it was still formidable this year at just under 27%. And Gray, there's a lot of starting pitchers, about 60, 65 starting pitchers this year that have thrown at least 150 innings. And he ranks 14th on that group in terms of his strikeout rate. Sonny Gray's walk rate of only 1.89 per 9 innings was the best of his career and one of the very lowest among big league starters in 2025. Gray's strikeout to walk ratio of 5.3 strikeouts for every walk that he's issued, third best overall among major league starters this year, the best in the National League among National League starters, and it was the best strikeout walk ratio of his career. Gray's, he's getting older and all that. This was his age 35 season. Great, but his innings total actually increased from last year, and Gray finished with, because he made his last start last night, he finished with 180 and 2/3 innings. In today's day and age, that's good. Gray's 3.6 wins above replacement, which is a measure of value, was 15th among all major league starting pitchers with 150 innings this season. According to StatCast, the one thing that Gray has, man, is that sweeper. It is a killer pitch. According to StatCast, Sonny Gray's high-value sweeper was the 5th best in the majors this season, and opponents could not do much with it at all. When they connected with a sweeper and put the ball in fair territory, they batted 150. They had a 239 slugging percentage. And when they didn't connect with it, on the sweeper, Sonny Gray had a strikeout rate of 51%. And he had a great 2-strike count strikeout rate, mostly because of that sweeper. See, so for all the things you look at and say, well, that wasn't as good as last year, this wasn't good as last year, that wasn't good as last year. No, I get it, because I told you some stuff. But when teams look at that sweeper, teams interested in Sonny Gray, look at that sweeper, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. I mean, that guy has got a great pitch to work with. And he's also got 3 other plus pitches. I'll tell you in a minute, the one thing I think he's got to do, and it seems silly for me, you know, I'm not Dave Duncan, but there's one thing that jumps out at me, but there were some problems with, or there are 3 problems with Gray, at least from 2025. First was his elevated home run rate that was his highest over the last 4 seasons. Second, Gray, this wasn't necessarily his fault, because his contact rate was down, or it was up against him this year a little bit, but not by a drastic amount. So there were balls in play. There's always going to be balls in play when he's not striking people out. You know, in that regard, there's fewer balls in play against him than any other Cardinal starting pitcher. But he was a victim of unfortunate batted ball luck this year. You know, opponents hit 329 on batted balls in play. That doesn't include home runs. Home runs are not in play. That 329 is a big number. That was the second highest figure against any starting pitcher in the majors this year. Logan Webb of the Giants had a higher one. And that 329 on balls in play, it was the highest of his career. And if history tells us anything, and I've studied this for a long time, it is this. We should expect, and Gray should expect, a lot more normalcy in batted ball luck next season, because that's the way it sort of goes. Third, this is what I wanted to talk about, because this is the one problem that I've seen, charted for 2 years in a row as a Cardinal. Gray's four-seam fastball is way, way too hittable. It was true last year. And I thought, well, there'll be some changes and it won't be as big of a problem. Yeah, it was a problem. It was StatCast got a thing called, like fastball run value, or they have run value ratings for all pitches. And his four-seam fastball was kind of like -4 in run value. And that was way, way, way down on the chart of all pitchers. This season, opponents smashed that four-seamer for a 370 batting average and a 585 slugging percentage. I mean, I'm thinking, man, maybe Sonny is reluctant to change. I don't know. I know Dusty Blake, the pitching coach, gives all his pitchers ideas about how they can, if they make an adjustment, maybe move away from this one pitch, start using another pitch more often, things like that. I don't know why Sonny Gray would just want to now for 2 years in a row stand on a mound, throw the four-seam fastball, and watch the damn thing line drive over his head. I really don't get it. And I tell you what, if he's traded, teams out there, if it's a team that's got a much better analytical department than John Mosaic's front office did, they'll identify some stuff and show him how stupid it is to keep throwing that four-seam fastball all the time. There's got to be a way to get around that and increase his overall effectiveness. Anyway, got to decrease that because, man, that thing has been clobbered for 2 years in a row. Anyway, there should be a robust market for Gray's services because good teams with championships aspirations always scramble to add effective starters. Was it an opportunity they line up, because there's not that many guys out there like that. And Sonny Gray's been good, even with some of the stuff that gives you concern. He's been really good. I was disappointed by his overall performance this year. It was way too inconsistent. And I don't get into these labels. One team's number one starter means something. Another team's number one starter doesn't mean much. And that's the way it was in St. Louis. And the whole ace thing, Cardinals can call him an ace. He didn't pitch like an ace in the classic sense. But I tell you what, man, if some teams, to some team that is a contender and they got their eyes on the prize in 26, if they want a number two starter, right, or maybe they got two really good starters, they need a number three. I think Gray fits in beautifully, and I've told you why. I've told you the flawed stuff, but I told you all the good stuff too. The guy still has got really good stuff, outstanding stuff. He can be really formidable, and then you get him into a place where he's got a chance to win, man, and I think that's even going to bring out more good things from him. Anyway, over his last 3 seasons, one with Minnesota, followed by 2 in St. Louis, Sonny Gray's averaged 31 starts per year. He ranks 11th for most innings pitched. He has the 10th best fielding independent ERA in the majors, plus all of those strikeouts. Gray, what about the money? Because that's going to be a factor. Gray has a $35 million salary for 2026 because it was backloaded. He signed a 3-year deal worth $75 million. But the Cardinals asked him to take, I think it was $10 million in the first season. And then they backloaded 2024 and especially 2025, which is $35 million. With $35 million this year. It's also going to be, am I screwing this up? There's $25 million this year. I'm sorry. My bad. $25 million this year, and then it'll be $35 million in 2026. Forgive me. That $35 million could be a little rich for some teams, but it also depends what kind of teams we're talking about. And the other thing is a club that acquires Gray, and they say, "Well, listen, we're gonna make our bet on that $35 million that it'll really help us if we pay that to him. He'll come through." But the good thing, if you're one of the teams looking at him and trying to decide, do we make a run for him or not? The club that acquires Sonny Gray, if it happens, has an option to retain him for 2027 at a salary of $30 million. And if a team doesn't want Gray beyond next season, then they owe him $5 million in buyout. My point is, the big shooters who have a lot of money, they get a good season out of Sonny Gray at $35 million next year. Then it's $30 million the year after. If they decide, well, yeah, we'd love to bring him back. He really helped us. Well, then they're not going to get squeamish at that $30 million. And if it's a team, maybe even a team that's in a mid-level market, but says, you know what, we'll gulp on this. It's not risk-free, but yeah, we'll get him for $35 million salary in 2026 because then we can pay him the buyout and we don't have to worry about the $30 million in 2027. See, so teams have, in other words, if a team that gets him really, really wants him and they want him for 2 years, well, they have him under control for 2 years. But if they want to bail out of it after 1 year, they can do that with the $5 million buyout, which is nothing in today's baseball economy. There's one potentially troublesome aspect about moving Gray, and you probably know what it is. The Cardinals don't have much depth of starting pitching. And it isn't because they're rebuilding. It's just that there's a little bit of a gap right now, right? They don't have any problem going with young pitchers, but they're not going to rush them to the major leagues. So there's a bit of a gap because they have a lot of good young pitching on the way. may not be ready just yet. But anyway, Matthew Liberatore, Michael McGreevy, and Andre Pallante are under the team's contract control for several more seasons. And I'm not endorsing keeping Pallante in the rotation. I'm just telling you who is under their contract control. Another guy under their contract control is Kyle Leahy. And if he earns a starting rotation job in spring training, that certainly would be a plus. What if Bloom can land a young starting pitcher prospect for Gray, a prospect that may not be ready in 2026, but a prospect that really excites them, and they think he'll be ready in late in 26 or then when 2027, whenever that season starts. The Cardinals do have a wave of pitching prospects on the way. Liam Doyle, Quinn Matthews, Eshawn Henderson. I would even put Bryson Motts on there. He's a sleeper. And he was one of the dudes that helped pitch Springfield to the Double-A championship last night. And I could keep reading names, but there's a lot of names. They have really good prospects at the high A level too. But the problem is some of these guys I mentioned, I could see Matthews and Doyle coming up here at some point in 26, and that would be exciting. But Chaim Bloom's style is not to rush that with pitchers. He wants them to be ready before they come to the major leagues. But by 2027, if they all stay healthy, well, the Cardinals would have a lot more options. But the question is, how many young starters would be deemed ready for promotion in 2026? I think Tekoa Roby definitely would have been, but he had the Tommy John surgery. But you know what? I said this in something I wrote. Tekoa Roby is a legit prospect. The Cardinals love his fastball and his curveball. That's why they traded for him in the Jordan Montgomery deal. He is a legit talent prospect. And to show you how things will be different under Chaim Bloom, Rob Cerfolio, Larry Day, Matt Pierpont, who's their pitching director, all these new brains in the organization. They talked to Tekoa Roby last offseason and said, look, your fastball's killer. Your curveball, it just snaps. It's really good. You need another pitch. So they had him throwing two other different kind of pitches, a slider being one and a changeup, if I have that correct. But anyway, they said, listen, man, we love your two pitches, but you got to expand your arsenal. It'll make you really, really more complete. And it'll give those hitters a lot more they have to think about except for two pitches. And so they changed that for Roby. And I tell you what, man, Roby, his 16 starts at Memphis this year before he got hurt, pardon the cliche, lights out. Outstanding. So the problem with him, is the Tommy John surgery is probably going to keep him out at least at the earliest until late next season. But more likely 2027 would be his return. But he's got talent. They have talent. And maybe one of these years, Tink Hence will actually make it to the major leagues. And he has a lot of talent too. We just don't know when they'll be ready. All pitchers are different. So there could be a gap. But you know what? If there is a gap, you can always find a cheap veteran starting pitcher on the free agent market that's still sitting there in February, right? That's what the Brewers did with Jose Quintana, signed him for $4.2 million. The Cubs signed Colin Ray for $5 million. There's other guys like that. If you need a stopgap for one season, there will be a list of guys you can sign for a relatively, well, I would say a low salary, and maybe Bloom and his people have found a way they can make him better just by pouring into the data. So I said, it was potentially a troublesome situation, but really, if you think about it, we're talking about a rebuild here. They're not supposed to be pretty. And Bloom and his people do have the acumen, I'm convinced, to identify free agent value signings. And as I mentioned, with the money that the Cardinals saved by trading Gray or Arenado or both, Bloom can hit the market for an inexpensive starter, maybe even 2 and 1 year deals if they need it. And of course, there's also Miles Mikolas. Miles. Our Mang. Miles Mikolas. Miles. Would you please come back? Wait a minute. Did I just say that? I think it was too much coffee. That was someone else. There's someone behind me who was saying, I'm just trying to have some fun. I'm stupid. Anyway, I think it's important to trade Gray because of his age. He doesn't have a future with the Cardinals beyond next season. And, it's better to trade him before something bad happens, if something bad does happen. Good time to cash him in. This is what you do when a team moves into a clear rebuilding phase. There is no reason to keep a guy like Sonny Gray on your team for the first official year of the rebuilding. It actually started this year, but it goes into a deeper phase next season. And I don't think Gray would be a happy pitcher if he's stuck in a rebuild with no postseasons in sight. He's a pro. He would do his job. But probably not as much fun if he's there with an obvious also ran from early in the season, knowing that we got no chance to compete. At least this year's Cardinals team. And I was aware of their flaws, and the only reason they hung around is that the Mets gave them the chance to hang around. But at least they went down to the final week, only 3.5 games out of a playoff spot. And I'm not saying, oh, that's a great team. No, it's not. The Mets were charitable, left the door open. Now, I know what some of you, I anticipate this because anytime we're talking about whether Cardinals should trade a pitcher or someone in the offseason, always get back, well, they can wait till the trade deadline in 2026. Well, I think they got fortunate in that regard, at least with Ryan Helsley and Phil Maton. Got some real live arms and a real live bat in those trades. But they were lucky with Helsley because Helsley imploded as soon as he was traded to the Mets. Phil Maton's been pitching better. Steven Matt's doing a real good job last time I looked anyway for the Red Sox. For me, this is the time to make the move because you don't want to take a risk of an injury. Sonny Gray, and suppose you bring him back and you're paying him $35 million and he makes like 12 starts and then, something's wrong with his elbow. Something's wrong with his shoulder. Is that what you want to be paying? Do you want to take the risk? That's what you would be paying for $35 million in 2026. He makes 7, 8, 10, 11 starts and goes to the IL and his shoulder's bad and his elbow aches and all that stuff. Or what about if he's having a really bad season? We saw some really bad starts this year. No. You don't play around with that. You're not trying to win in 26. The worst thing that could happen is that you're stuck with Sonny Gray at $35 million and Sonny Gray is hurt or Sonny Gray is pitching very ineffectively. The time to make the move is sooner, not later. That's obvious to me. And as Sonny Gray said, the way he's wired, I expect to win. I respect that. But Sonny Gray can also expect to be traded, because it just seems obvious that's where this is heading. Hey, listen, thank you as always for watching. Thank you as always for supporting our sponsors, DraftKings and Blue Chew. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, support all of our work. We're working hard for you. We have so much content about every team that you care about in the St. Louis area. Also, we're talking about St. Louis sports. We're talking about Mizzou sports. We're talking about Illinois sports. So to keep that content pumping, we got to get more subscriptions, and that just makes everything flow. So please help us out, even if I annoy you sometimes. Doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. All right, let me shut up now. I got some other things I got to get to today. You've been watching The Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central. Thank you very much. Hello there, I'm Bernie Miklasz, and I want to take a minute to brag about everything that we're doing here on STL Sports Central. But first, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you a quick story because I think you need to hear it. When this site began a few months ago, whenever it was, right, I was curious to see what I would find here. I love sports content, but I can be a little picky. I want it to be consistent. I want it to be smart. I want it to be fun. I want it to be something I can count on. Not every now and then, but every day if possible. Well, listen, I got all of that and then some. I was simply blown away by the huge amount of content, good content, quality content, a variety of content on this site. Hey, there's Cardinals coverage with Card Central 365, which is there for you every single day, 365 days a year. You're going to stay up to date with a great cast of hosts my friends that include Brendan Schaefer, Mike Claiborne, Joe Roderick, Stephen Carey, Ryan Fagan, and many more. And that's not all. There's post-game shows after every game. In fact, this is about the Cardinals coverage, but there's post-game shows after every game, any St. Louis sports team, college or pro. It's amazing. And these post-game shows feature the hosts that I've already mentioned, plus in terms of the Cardinals post-games, plus Sarah Daly and Ethan Hannaford. And I'm in the bullpen in case they want to bring the old reliever out so I can holler about something. Hey, long story short, and I wasn't very short, but here's the story. I was so impressed with STL Sports Central, I knew something right away. I wanted to be part of the team, and so I am. Here I am. Please join us all. There's nothing like this in the St. Louis sports market. There is nothing like it in this market. There never has been, and we are breaking that ground. We are changing the way St. Louis sports fans consume their sports content. I'm proud to be on the squad. Thank you, and join us.